Hey guys, among the Impostors, chapter 11 today, and the last chapter we read was chapter 10. Luke returned from the woods. He went through the door, everything was fine, it was unlocked. But when he got inside, there was a hall monitor there, and he was a little suspicious to Luke. And Luke thought maybe, possibly, he is guarding the door that people are coming out of. So, chapter 11. Well, he's not coming up. People are not coming out of, he's coming out of. Chapter 11. Luke longed to race straight to the woods as soon as he woke up the next morning. It was torture to stand patiently beside all the other boys, splashing water on his face. It was torture to sit still and slowly spoon in the lumpy oatmeal when he longed to gulp it down and get out of there. Though, since he missed 2 meals the day before, it was amazing how delicious the oatmeal seemed for once. It was torture waiting for the cafeteria doors to open and release everyone else to classes and Luke to the woods. As soon as breakfast was over, he took off, but all but running. Surprisingly, given how confused he usually got in the Hendricks halls, he managed to make a beeline straight for the door, without once making a wrong turn and having to retrace his steps. Approaching the door, he slowed down, waiting for the crowd to clear in the hall. Finally, there was only Luke and a hall monitor several yards away. The door wasn't open today, but Luke was confident that it wasn't locked. He was confident that he could slip out quickly enough. He glanced back. The hall monitor was looking the other way. Now, Luke reached for the doorknob and then drew back. At the last minute, it was like someone or something screamed, "No!" in his mind. Mother had talked about God sometimes. Maybe that's who it was. Or maybe it was Jen's spirit come to help Luke when her father's note hadn't. Maybe it was just Luke's own common sense. Luke didn't know what he thought about God or ghosts or even his own intelligence, but he knew he couldn't risk going to the woods today. Luke walked on, pretending to be casually dawdling. "Get to class," the monitor growled. Luke nodded and stepped into the next classroom. He paused. He felt as disappointed as if he discovered bars on the door. What was he, a coward? Luke remembered all the mind games he played with himself, trying to get up the nerve to go to Jen's house that first time. He waited weeks, always telling himself he was just waiting for the right moment. He had been a coward then, but he wasn't being a coward now, sinking into a seat as anonymous as every other boy in the room. He actually felt brave, clever, crafty. Probably he just gotten lucky the day before. If he wanted to be able to go to the woods again and again and again without getting caught, he'd have to be smart about it. He'd have to pay attention to everything. Maybe he'd even have to figure out why the hall monitor the night before had been so panicky. Before he went back again, he'd have to know it was safe. Luke looked around the room. Up front, the teacher was drawing complicated looking mathematical formulas on the chalkboard. Luke couldn't have solved any of them if his life depended on it. But for once, instead of sinking into despair and staring down at the desk in front of him, Luke got the nerve to peer around at the other boys. A few were watching the teacher, a few were taking notes, some were sleeping, their mouths slack-jawed, and some were sitting off to the side, their arms clutched and their legs rocking back and forth. Luke stared. He didn't have much to go on since he only known 6 people before in his entire life, but that rocking certainly didn't seem like normal behavior. Eventually, the bell rang, and he stumbled into another class. It was the same way there. Some boys acting normal, some boys rocking endlessly. Why hadn't he noticed anything like that before? He knew why. Every other time he looked directly at any of the other boys, he glanced quickly, then looked away, for fear they might actually look back. You can miss a lot doing that. Walking through the hall to the next class, Luke tried an experiment. He stared directly into the eyes of every single boy who went past him. It was terrifying, even worse than running blindly across a lawn. Luke's stomach seized up, and he thought he might actually throw up his breakfast oatmeal. He thought his legs might crumple under him in fear. But it was also interesting. Most of the other boys he passed looked away as soon as Luke made eye contact. Some of them seemed to have a sort of sixth sense that warned them all from letting Luke look at them in the first place. Only 2 or 3 stared boldly back, their eyes locked on Luke's just as Luke's were locked on theirs. "Remember them," Luke ordered himself, but it took all of his willpower just to keep himself from looking away. When he finally arrived in the classroom doorway, Luke was shaking all over. "I gave something away," just then he thought. "Now they'll know." But he didn't know who they were. Interesting.